This is Andy. Like any other millennials, Andy lives in a big metropolitan city. His boarding house is situated quite far away from his workplace. And so, like many others, he needs a motorbike to get to and from work every day. As we are all familiar, big cities are often congested. So Andy has to navigate his way through a sea of vehicles twice a day, every day. And Andy is one of thousands going through the exact same thing every single day. So of course, pollution is a no-brainer.
But fortunately for Andy and 250 million other Indonesians, they've got Gojek, the ride-hailing app. With Gojek, Andy no longer needs his own bike. With Gojek, people don't need to buy motorcycles. When everyone shares, roads are clearer, skies are cleaner, and people are happier.
Gojek, like many other companies, is part of the sharing economy. However, the idea of sharing physical goods was uncommon in the past. The reason? Simple, because people found it hard to match supply and demand. And even when they do, they find it difficult to trust each other. Until the financial crisis of 2008. The crisis took out a huge chunk of people's purchasing power. And that became a turning point. People realized that it's not a car that they need, it's mobility. It isn't a house that they need, it's shelter. It isn't ownership that they need, it's access.
And so this change in consumer value marked the beginning of sharing economy. So today, millions of people around the world have embraced this concept, including Indonesia. Since 2013, companies of all sorts have setting their foot in one of the biggest markets in Asia, when foreign companies like Uber and Airbnb, and also homegrown unicorns like Gojek, all of those have helped millions of households, of course, to save more money and to make more money as well. That's why it is no doubt that the sharing economy, along with its new wave of technology, will be the future. Or will it?
The coronavirus outbreak is worse.
New COVID cases in America.
Cases are skyrocketing.
Confirmed cases of COVID-19
worldwide have lost their lives.
The threat of the coronavirus.
We need to develop a vaccine.
The pandemic has brought many changes to the way we live. Mainly work from home, travel restrictions, and the anxiety of people catching viruses in public places. And these changes has certainly taken its toll to the shared economy. In quarter 2 this year, Uber reportedly a 29% decline in revenue in year-on-year. Even with that 103% increase in delivery revenue, it could not help offset a 67% decline in mobility revenue. Ride hailing used to represent the biggest contributor of Uber's revenue, but as the pandemic continues, its delivery service such as Uber Eats has become the biggest contributor in Uber's revenue. As more people stay indoor, more people are ordering from Uber Eats than ever before.
Meanwhile, Airbnb, which is aiming for an IPO this year, has had it worse compared to Uber. In the second quarter this year, the company reported a revenue drop of 67% to just $335 million, which is a far cry from the more than $1 billion it collected in the same quarter last year. The company has also lost $400 million in the second quarter this year, on top of the $341 million it already lost in the previous quarter. In Indonesia, the story is no different. Grab and Gojek have also suffered this year, with both reporting double-digit declines in the ride-hailing business. Grab CEO Anthony Tan has even said that the pandemic represented the single biggest crisis to affect Grab in the 8 years of its existence. With the end of the pandemic nowhere in sight, we found ourselves asking, could the pandemic outlast the sharing economy? Even though the pandemic is beyond their control, these companies haven't just been sitting idly waiting for things to pass. For Uber, the response has been to consolidate. CEO Dara Khosrowshahi has said, in difficult times, consolidation makes sense. This year, Uber announced its decision to acquire Postmates, a food delivery service, for $2.65 billion. The move was intended to complement Uber's own food delivery service, Uber Eats, which has enjoyed spectacular growth during the pandemic. But why consolidation? 3 things. First, bigger market share. Uber and Postmates would have 37% of the food delivery service market, thanks to the added consumer base from Postmates, which is strong in the US Southwest and has good relationships with small and medium-sized restaurants. Second, cost savings. Uber estimates cost saving synergies of $200 million in the next 2 years, and efficiency gains from using Uber's smarter routing technology. Third, increase in pricing power. The market for food delivery service is oversaturated, so companies have been competing on who could offer the lowest cost, reducing profits for everyone. Uber's acquisition of Postmates reduces competition, and increases its pricing power, which will help make prices become more sustainable.
And Uber is not alone. Airbnb is also taking the hit. COVID-19 has forced the company to take a deep look into its user data to find trends and changes that could help the company weather the pandemic. In May and June of this year, the company has found out that the average duration of stay in Airbnb accommodations have doubled, and 30% of the bookings are now within an 80-kilometer radius of the guests' own homes, compared to 13% before the pandemic. To add to that, domestic travels have also more than doubled, making up 80% of all bookings. Now, in short, people are staying longer and closer to their homes. With these insights in mind, Airbnb has launched several incentives to promote local travel. They've made it easier for people to book last-minute local travels, while also offering ideas for local trips. They've also launched their summer social media campaign called Go Near in order to promote nearby getaways.
Last but not least, the key for survival according to Grab has been adaptability. Grab Malaysia has helped transition over 18,000 people to its GrabFood and Grab Delivery Express because there are more demand in food and parcel delivery service than its ride-hailing services. Grab Malaysia's managing director, Sean Goh, said that the company is adjusting the increased importance of delivery services.
In the end, the fate of the sharing economy depends on what the post-pandemic world looks like. And for us, it could look like two things. First, a world with less offices. It's no surprise that office buildings have been empty as more people work from home. But what is even more surprising is the fact that people won't be rushing to go to office even after the pandemic is over. A research by McKinsey reported that 80% of the people interviewed enjoy working from home, and 41% mentioned that by working from home they are more productive than ever before. If companies realize that they could maintain their productivity and engagement by working from home, suddenly having an office doesn't seem that important. As a result, another survey by PwC in June found that around 30% of executives foresee the need for less office space. Companies in the sharing economy, mainly Uber and Grab, could face lower demand if people don't use their services to go to work. On the other hand, we think that this trend could actually create a new business model, where an application could list all the available office in an area and the users can reserve it through an app. So it's like Airbnb, but for office space. This is possible because office providers don't have tenants and occasionally still need an office or a co-working space but don't want to pay an annual rent. This could be a potential business idea that could attract a lot of investors if the trend still persists.
Second, private transportation more than public transportation. On the other hand, we could see another trend that could benefit the companies. As people starting to go out and some offices reopen, some people who usually take public transportation suddenly decided that they won't risk getting infected by being in a small, crowded public spaces. In China, urban traffic is set as an indicator of economic activity, and in March 2020, the number has reached 90% of its normal level. This indicates that people are starting to go to work as per usual. However, this recovery comes at the expense of public transportation use. In China's big cities, the number of passengers of subways were down 66% in May 2020, when the pandemic was way over its peak. And the number of Beijing subways were down 4 million compared last year.
People switching from public transportation could actually benefit the ride-hailing companies such as Uber and Grab. And even though they might think that they prefer more to private cars or bicycle, there are some people who don't have both. That's why they think that Uber is less risky compared to being squeezed in the public transportation. This explains Uber's decision to invest in $170 million in Lime, an e-scooter rental service back in May, confident that people will switch from train and buses to scooters. In the end, these two trends actually offer a glimpse to us of what will happen in near the future between now and after the vaccine of COVID will be invented and be available for everyone. But the pandemic itself is actually an opportunity for the sharing economy to reinvent itself for the present and for the future.